Welcome to Remotely Interested, the podcast where we talk remote working, work life in general, and top tips to successfully work from anywhere. Today we'll hear from Jean-Baptiste Grillon. Jean-Baptiste runs a cleaning business operating in London, as well as working remotely as a psychotherapist. He's also my brother-in-law. During our chat, you'll hear how he has managed to seamlessly weave the knowledge he's gained from working in two very different professions to support his own personal development and also to grow his business, working remotely from Colombia and Spain. Jean-Baptiste, welcome to the Remotely Interested podcast.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for having me, and good morning to you.
Thanks for accepting. Really good to see you. I think we're going to get some really interesting insights into your business, stuff that I don't even know. So looking forward to finding that out. So to begin with, for the listeners and for me, can you tell me about the work that you do and how remote working, how and when that became a feature in the way that you work?
So today it's a cleaning company. I started as a self-employed in 2010 and started on my own with a ladder, bucket, and squeegee, window cleaning, and now we do other types of cleaning like gutter cleaning and other things. But yeah, it's been a journey to be doing that. But I had one main objective, and the objective since the beginning in 2010 was to, be able to manage this remotely.
Yeah.
Being able, to have someone who can manage it whilst I'm not there and have employees that, that do the jobs. So that was the main objective. So once you have that in mind, for me, it conditions your mind, your brain to actually, work around that. So then I created micro objectives to make sure things weren't too overwhelming. Because at the beginning, if you're always constantly thinking about the main objective, remote work, you're just not going to get there. So making micro objectives to get to that point will help you to be able to work remotely. So to give an example, I started, yes, on my own. Then I had a friend of me who still works with me today. It's been, 12 years?
Okay.
Yeah, we've always done the cleaning together. He knew the clients, a loyal friend. I consider him like my brother. And at some point when I wanted to leave in 2019, I wanted to go to another country. I went to Colombia. For me, my project over all those years was to actually be able to trust someone. And since he had already worked with me for 8 years, for me, I wanted to actually leave the business to him and for him to manage. But for that to happen, it was important for me to trust him for a few months without me being there. But
Yeah.
also me being there in the country just in case there was an emergency. So in November 2019, I left him the business for 2 months. 2 months before I went to Colombia in January 2020. And during those 2 months, he did everything great, no issues whatsoever. And I just left in January 2020. Peace of mind. That's something that's going to come up many times in the podcast where remote work is about having peace of mind, having delegating to the right people. This is your category. You gotta deal with this, communicating
Yeah.
to them, paying them what they want to be paid, obviously negotiating this and that, and making sure that they do the work. So, and as the world knows, whoever's listening to this podcast, in March 2020, the COVID came.
Yeah.
So I think it was stressful for everyone around the world. But our line of business actually is actually quite stable financially. And actually, since 2020 till now, the business has quadrupled,
Wow.
in a space of, 4 years. And now
Okay.
we have other workers. And all this is me not lifting a finger on windows or gutters or doing any kind of cleaning. So it's
Yeah.
really worked out well. I'm a believer, so I believe that God blessed the company and the things I did, the charity work I did in South America. But
Yeah.
also we implemented ideas which really worked out well for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, fantastic. I really like that point that you began with about micro objectives
Yeah.
because from what you've said, it was a long-term goal to go remote, but you didn't put pressure on yourself then to become a remote manager straight away. There were stages that you went through in
Mm.
order to get to that final goal.
Absolutely. I think at the beginning, it's those micro objectives. I think that they really help you. I think they need to be objectives which are not too big, which they're a challenge, but at the same time they're attainable.
Yeah,
So you're always pushing yourself to reach that micro objective, and then you put in place a structure and a concept on how to reach that goal. But I feel in this line of business, in any kind of company I would have created, simplicity is the best way forward. Making things as simple as possible, so that if you do remote work, you have peace of mind or whatever you're doing extra or for me, working smart is the best way forward. Working less, working smart. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, fantastic. And so obviously I'm sure there were a lot of micro objectives. So I won't ask you to go through all of them, but initially, would you say the first goal was to establish the business yourself as a self-employed worker and then grow from there with your work associate? Were those the initial stages?
I think the most important, I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, is what am I content with? I think it's about growing inside of your gratitude for what you do have. And at some point, if I were to reach that goal, financially speaking, so if I were to have, in your case, imagine £2,000 every single month, can I live with that and pay for my needs and have a
Yeah.
little pleasure and this or
Mm,
that? So I think it's about knowing ourselves really well to know with that amount of money, can I live with this?
mm,
And because money never stops, and especially
yeah.
in my line of work, it's a lot of the work we have clients is window cleaning. Windows are everywhere, so it's unlimited. But at
Yeah.
some point, you have to have an objective. If I reach this goal will permit me to have this kind of salary, will help me, to have more free time or this or that, or to go remote work. So it's that's the main objective, knowing what you need every single month, and then you can go live somewhere else or whatever. But I think a lot of people, when they create a company, they have tendency to be greedy or not knowing how to do sacrifices.
Mm,
In my business since the beginning, it was always about delegating and paying people, the right people, on what they're good at. So, for example, I made a website, but I paid someone. I could have made the website myself. But I thought, pay the people who are expert at what they do every single day, and you delegate. It's peace of mind. He's doing it. You earn a little bit less money, but you have more freedom. There's been many people who've asked me, who asked for counsel on how do I have managed to do my business and how I've managed to do remote work and how can I start? And they wished they had someone like Erin, so the one that, that's my friend who's been working with me all along.
yeah.
I say to them, well, it's about sacrifices. How much do you pay your guys? If you're starting, like, you keep, complaining that they keep leaving or this or that, they're not loyal, but how much do you actually pay them? If you're paying them a basic wage, well, you're not offering them anything special. Now, at the beginning, when I left to Colombia, I gave him a percentage, which means that, for example, so he's a part owner. Let's say that. For me, he's like family, so he's a part owner of the business. I always trusted him. I've never made a contract with him. That's something rare also.
Oh,
Because
wow. Yeah.
we were on the same wavelength, and because he's like family, same wavelength on our relationship with money, which is not very important. We never argued about money, which was very important. So when you're on the same wavelength, someone that's quite precious also. But I gave him a percentage because if the company makes more money every month, he's winning and I'm winning. If
Yeah.
we make less money, he's earning less, I'm earning less. So, we got to do something about it. So it's about including everyone. The company is a little bit family orientated. So, we help each other out a lot, even with the other employees. You know, every time they struggle, they need help, we're there to, you know, to help out and help each other out. So there's a nice spirit, and all this contributes once again to peace of mind. And I think when you're a remote worker and you're in another country where you can't always come back to help out, it's complicated. It's complicated to go back from South America all the way back to London because you got to do this or that client. You know, I've never had to do it.
Yeah.
And I think also having a micro objective of having always a plan B, plan C, that there's always a solution to things. You know, every everyday task, you know, there's always things that are breaking, maybe in the vans, you know, that you need to replace. So I always make sure with Erin to always have equipment to replace in case it breaks. You can repair it on the, you know, on the day. You don't lose your day's work, this or that. There's only once where there was no solution. There could have been, but Erin had hurt himself and he was really poorly and he was in hospital for a few weeks in, I believe, January 2022. And it was winter, it's extremely complicated. I could have found someone else to replace. There was only just two of us, you know, so he was doing the work. I was in Colombia. And I said to him, because he was really stressed for me, because obviously I rely on his work. So if he doesn't work, I don't get no money also.
Yeah.
I think it's about valuing, once again, peace of mind and knowing that we put life first. It's not about making money and material things. It's about living well. And you know what? We didn't make a mom's salary in a whole lifetime. What is that? It's nothing, you know. And I told him like you need to, you know, you need to rest up, you need to recover for the next few weeks, and from February we just, you know, we just carry on. So I think it's valuing also your emotional state. I think if you're creating a company or if you're doing remote work, you need to value that highly. If you have a company or if you're doing remote work and you're stressed every single day, it means you're doing something horribly wrong. Might as well just be an employee. If you are a manager, the whole point of being a manager is normally to earn more money and to be less stressed. Normally, for me, the way I function. Otherwise, I'd just rather be earn less and just be an employee and go home, work 9 to 5 and just go home. So for me, I had to create a concept which works out well for everyone. Everyone is winning, I'm winning, and everyone has peace of mind and not too stressed, because stress is, as we all know, will affect you, even if it's not in the moment. In the next few months, few years, you will, you know, have a burnout, depression, you know. So I think if whoever's listening to this podcast, if they are stressed, and it's been a little bit of stress is normal. You know, it was a stressful period, January 22, when it happened to Erin. But I feel it's important to if it's been a few weeks or a few months to a year, I think the person needs to change something.
Yeah.
Either delegating, maybe you're doing too much work and you need to delegate. So once again, it's about peace of mind at the core, which means that you will also find you will want to put in place sacrifice, peace of mind, sacrifice what? Financially to equal what? Well, to equal peace of mind and feeling better, basically, emotionally. So I think that's something precious, and it's the balance that everybody needs to find for themselves. Everybody have different limitations. And so, yeah, I think that's that for a lot of things. Yeah.
Fantastic. Really super interesting insight and connection between a balanced view of financial things and also underscoring well-being as well.
Yeah.
And all of that linked as well to the mutual trust between yourself and your employees. Really interesting perspective, Jean-Baptiste. And our listeners might not be aware that you are an economics graduate, that you have that education.
Yeah.
And I think that shows in the way that you manage your business, that you understand the mechanisms that need to be in place for that to work. But I really like that point where I think there's a risk in the way the world is that people want to start a job and then just earn as much as possible. You know, the sky's the limit. So I'm going
Mhm.
to do this job and I'm going to devote this many hours and the sky's the limit. But your point about the fact that no, think about what you need and a little bit more. Think about your lifestyle. Think about what is really necessary for you just simply to be happy, comfortable, and maybe a little bit more than comfortable. So
Mm.
actually having a lower limit in mind to
Mhm.
not put yourself under that stress to overstretch yourself and like you say, eventually lead to burnout. And so super interesting as well that because of that attitude, then you won't shy away from investing the money in other people who can offer certain skills. Yeah, you won't be stingy. That's a risk, isn't it? If you're a
Exactly.
stingy business owner, you're going to try and do everything yourself, not do it well, and end up exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with you, Marianne. And also, to add on to that, there was a couple of weeks ago, someone who went my insight on company making, and they had the same line of work, but in France, and they wanted specific figures on how much we were making, so he could have an idea of how much he needs, to run the company and all sorts. But for me, I didn't answer his question, and the
Mm.
message, because I had answered a lot of his questions beforehand, and he was insisting, and my response is still pending. You probably
Yeah,
won't get an answer because
read the room.
yeah, because there is no. I tried to explain to him that there is no comparison. First of
Mm.
all, I'm in UK in London, and the salary that you make in London has nothing to do where he was or somewhere in France.
Yeah.
And so economically, you cannot compare. So there's no need to give some figures. So what my point is that there's no comparison with what someone else is doing. What's important once again is gratitude for what you have. How can I give maybe a micro objective on maybe do we need a little bit more? So what can I put in place to have a little bit more? So for example, us every single month, I pay a canvasser, so that's going back to what you were saying. So having, people at the right place and doing a better job. Maybe I could canvas myself. It's not too difficult, but I feel he has this thing where with people, he knows how to connect and he knows how to find clients really quickly. And so it's about, obviously, every time I pay for someone, it means it's less money for me, but it's also about seeing the bigger picture here. It means that, yes, you will earn less money now, but in a few months, in a few years, you will earn much, much more. At some
Mm.
point, if you have a simple mindset, you won't even know what to do with your money anymore. And that's what I've always tried to do is to reinvest the money. First of all, you pay less taxes when you reinvest straight away. And I went from self-employed to company, creating a company for tax reasons. It was more beneficial, and from that we just move on, and yeah, we just adapt. I
Yeah.
think it's important not to compare. I think it's always good. What am I happy with, and to know when do we stop. So, for example, to go back to what you were saying, I always ask the one that works with me, Erin, because you're going to manage these clients. So what are we, when do we stop? When is it good for you? So it's about communication is key when you have a team. So I would say I'm kind of a coordinator. I coordinate between all of them, between my secretary, between my two employees and Erin, and I make sure that everything runs smooth and we communicate well. And I always ask him, when do we stop? When is good for you? Because for me, I'm happy with the money I earn now, so I don't need to earn more. And it's been what, 2 years, but we've always progressed more and more. So it's about including him. When you include people in the company and they feel like, they're part of the company and they're making decisions also, and you give them that recognition, they will do more for you,
Mm.
and they stay loyal to you because they know that, it's our thing. It's not my company, it's our company. And if one person is not doing a good job, then everybody is affected. So it's important that everybody is happy, everybody's at their place, and that they give also, their insight. I always ask my employees, how is it for you? Is it okay? Are you happy? Is there anything I can do to make things simpler for you? Or is there any ideas that we can go maybe quicker or for you to have a simpler life? So just let me know. So it's all about that communication, always communicating regularly. And when people communicate and you address problems as quickly as possible, then there's no tension, hardly ever. And always having a plan B and plan C and letting them know that there's a plan B. So they're reassured, they feel secure in what they do. So with Erin, we discussed, and this was our discussion this month, because at some point I was happy with what I used to earn when I left in 2020. The fact that the company quadrupled in 4 years, it's a blessing. So basically, Erin is someone who he only works a few days a month, but he
Yeah.
makes sure, he guarantees me that if there's any problems with the employees and don't do their jobs because either they go on holidays or because something's happened, which he's going to cover it, which was part of the plan B from learning the first mistake where in January 2022, when it was only Erin and me, he was only doing work, no one was covering, and we didn't
Yeah.
have. I could have found someone, it would have been rushed, the job would have been done properly. And so it was part of learning from our past mistakes. So I thought to myself, it's important that we do progress a little bit more financially so we can have a second person. And with that second person, he can cover. He doesn't have too much work every single month, but if something happens to Erin or him, they can help each other out. And so all the clients are always covered every single month. So it's about learning from past mistakes and reacting quite quickly to it.
Yeah.
But that you learn over time. You learn over time. So
Yeah. But it's enabling you as well, isn't it? The fact that you're not overlooking those lessons that have come out of difficulties is enabling you to lead in a way that gains the trust of your employees. Everything
mm,
is transparent by the sounds of things, so
yeah,
they can
yeah,
see,
exactly that.
okay, that went wrong. Plan B will be this, plan C will be this, and they can see why they're part of it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that that essentially links to the fact that you're being balanced
Mm,
about financial targets, that you're
mm,
willing to invest in your staff and listen to their opinions and work with them. And of course, it's cyclical, isn't it? They trust you, you trust them. The way they work is better. And certainly the health of the business, from what you've said, is also on the up as well, thanks to that. So that's
yeah, yeah,
really good.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I really liked your point as well about not comparing because people work remotely for so many different reasons as well. Different well-being reasons, family reasons, economical reasons perhaps, but it's no two people's way of working is exactly the same anyway. So yeah, I completely agree that comparing one must earn this amount if they live here, if it's just completely irrelevant.
Mm,
Everybody needs to look at their own well-being, their own circumstances, and then they'll be happier. And I'm aware as well, JB, that obviously you have this limited company now in the UK. And I want to highlight to our listeners as well that the work that's being carried out has to be in person. Obviously, you can't clean windows remotely,
mm,
but Jean-Baptiste has arranged things in a way to be able to manage that remotely. So for anybody who's listening and thinking, well, the job that I do is impossible to go remote, just keep that in mind that perhaps developing a team or even just one associate who can assist you can give you that flexibility, can give both of you flexibility to at least be remote on a part-time basis.
mm. I think to add on to that, maybe for me to make it clearer to what I was saying, I think it's when you're trying to find someone to to work for you, I think it's or to work with you. You see, I think there's a difference because I always consider Erin someone who's working with me and not for me. And I think when you present someone like that, they feel much more included. And I think that that was part of what helped him also to be loyal to the company. I mean, he's been working with me 12 years. I mean, how many companies do people work? for so long. There are,
Yeah,
but maybe
but it's rare.
or he could have made his own, company, and it's quite a simple, simple concept and a simple job to do. You don't need any kind of qualifications. So, but I think it's having someone loyal and being able to sacrifice. For example, Erin could have told me, well, I want to earn a little bit more now. I don't think it's fair on this and that. So I think it's about knowing how to do those sacrifices. Is me paying him more, which means less money for me, but am I still happy with that and not hold on to it? And I think it's the struggle for a lot of people when they get a certain amount of money, they're not willing to cut back. Well, you're cutting back to keep the same lifestyle in a way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. If you're in the South America and Africa, you're working 3,000, 4,000 pound every single month. I mean, what for? But it all depends on your lifestyle, of course, and what you're grateful with, and I think it's important to be able to cut back on certain things. You earn less, you spend less. You earn more, then you can spend a little more, and but it doesn't contribute to your happiness. That's what the whole message is also about, is that money is unlimited. At some point, it's about being happy with your lifestyle and what you're doing, and having that peace of mind and being able to do different kind of things. So whilst, I only spend about an hour a month, to just to check on the guys and to coordinate things. I mean, for me, that's, an hour a month is nothing. And it gives me loads of time to do charity work, or to serve, my God, because I'm a believer. And to be able to do other trainings. I did trainings in personal development and as a psychotherapist in Paris, in London, and to be able to discover new things and to open your mind and to discover new countries. So all of that comes down to being reasonable when it comes to money and having that peace of mind. If you're too preoccupied with what you're doing, you need to change something. You need to change. If it's too stressful because you can't do anything else, then you need to change something as soon as possible.
Yeah. That really underscores the importance of considering work, even if you enjoy it, and great if you enjoy your job, but nonetheless, not forgetting the work is in order to support your lifestyle, to
Mm.
enable you to live in a certain way. And so having a the sky's the limit mentality isn't necessarily helpful, is it?
Yeah.
That I really love that point that you made earlier about having a lower limit or a reasonable
Mm.
kind of average limit to aim for, and not preoccupy yourself with going above that if it's simply not what you need.
I
Big
think
thing.
it's how much you value things, how much you value money, and how much you value your lifestyle. It all comes down to that. And I
Mm,
think if you sit down and you're honest with yourself and you really answer the question, what weighs more in my life, and how comes one weighs more than the other, and
mm,
to question it. And for me, by far, having a good lifestyle will weigh way more than money. So. I think it's the beliefs we have about what does money give me, what does this or this lifestyle, and have enough reasons behind it to do so. So because the lifestyle, there's so many good reasons for me to have this lifestyle, I will do everything in my power to keep it that way.
yeah. Shameless plug of my first course that I published on Udemy, if anybody who's not seen it. That is one of my key chapters about figuring out from the beginning what your why is. If you're clear about that from the beginning,
Mm,
you're going to be faithful, as it were, to your own core principles. You're not going to be tempted to overstretch yourself or perhaps even engage in business practices that aren't completely legitimate,
mm,
yeah, at the expense of your own core values. You're going to want to work in a way where you can maintain self-respect and know why you're pushing yourself in a direction in order to maintain a balanced lifestyle, which is more important, of course, than money. And you've mentioned as well that the flexibility that the way that you've run your business has offered you has enabled you to live in Colombia. You've lived in different countries in Europe, and also explore another avenue of work with the psychotherapy as well. And if
Mm.
I understand correctly, that is something that you do 100% remotely as well?
Absolutely. So both my parents are also psychotherapists, and I've always been passionate on the subject. And because I had time, it was during, the COVID times, and I had a lot of free time. I thought, let me do something. I had studied psychology also before for some time, but I wanted to do something very specific. I saw the potential where I could work remotely via Zoom. So that was also part of my plan B. You see, if anything would to happen in London, for example, I'm in Spain at the moment, and a couple of days back there was huge floodings in Valencia, and it was
Mm.
catastrophic. A lot of people have lost a lot of things. It can happen anywhere in the world. It can happen in London, in greatest cities like London, and all my clients are in London, and what stops them from cancelling and
Yeah.
stopping the service? It could happen. So for me, it was part of how can I keep on nourishing this peace of mind by having a plan B. What would be my plan B if my this company would fail? And so the reason why I mostly started was to benefit myself on improving who I am as a being, and to be better for other people, and to be able to share it. It wasn't at the beginning to actually make it a job, but I also saw that if I did, I could actually do this remotely. And after a few years of studies, I became, a therapist, and yeah, I work 2 days a week on that, and it's great. It's great to have that as a plan B.
So from the beginning, it was your goal to be remote, to have that flexibility, and
Yeah.
that's carried through in the development of your business, but
Mm,
now also enabling you to diversify in this
mm.
in this new line of work. And like you say, something that's connected to your own personal development as well. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
incredible to have that freedom to develop in that way.
Absolutely. And it's helped for my own company and the cleaning company in, communication skills, and to contribute to their well-being and knowing how to communicate and to make things clear. And so everything else you do, because you do remote work and you have less work to do, you can broaden your horizons and other things, and it'll all contribute to making yourself a better person, but also to expand your knowledge on many other aspects, which will
Yeah.
contribute to you to be able to share and to be a better person. Yeah,
Yeah, totally. It's enriching, isn't it? Every
that's it.
aspect kind of feeds the other and it makes for a more interesting, enriched life.
Mm, mm.
Fantastic. Well, we've already touched on so many of these, but if we were to summarize now, what would you say are the positive things that come out of working remotely?
I think for me personally, to serve something higher than you, being able to have that time, because it is the point of remote working, and to have a certain lifestyle. For me, that's how I saw it, is to be able to help other people, whatever it is, if it's in financial, spiritual, emotional way, and to be able, because you obviously give yourself something, and being able to do remote work, positive side is that you have more time for yourself, and you are able to enrich, like you said, it's a good point, you enrich yourself in certain things and certain aspects in your personality, and the fact of being able to see different countries, you are able to function differently. There isn't one way of doing things. Maybe there's one way better than the other, yeah, but then you discover that there's other ways, and it kind of helps you also to see that there's always a solution, and that also contributes to running your business. That, well, okay, yeah, I always function that way, but can I find another way of doing things? For me, that's the big positive, is to serve something greater than myself.
Really nice. It just opens the opportunity to not just focus on work and on financial remuneration,
Yeah,
but also be able to help others. Like you say, if one has a faith, be faithful to that and develop oneself on a spiritual level.
yeah, absolutely. And I wish it for anyone who wants to do remote work to really be able to discover these things. either to be, believing in God or helping others, and to discover new cultures and being able to broaden our minds. And that's something, it's priceless. The rest of it, we know the advert is MasterCard. But having these experiences, it's something you don't read in books. You can read all the psychology books you want, you can have all the knowledge you want, but if you haven't lived it, you wouldn't truly fully understand on an emotional level what it is to actually work remotely and to discover new things. And that is a big, big plus. It's a big positive. Yeah.
So if you imagine your life now and you're not working remotely, how many things do you think you would have missed out on?
Oh, I think there's so much. You see, the reason why I also left is because I had a big amount of money before I left to Colombia, and because I'm a believer, I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Am I going to buy material things, invest in London, and buy a house or buy this, or am I going to use my resources for something bigger than myself? And so I use that resource to actually go somewhere, have an objective. All the people that I've met over the years who have helped me, even if, in certain countries like South America or Africa, they might have a small amount because they never travel, this or that, or have a simpler mind, let's say, you'll always work on a quality. For example, patience and love, and it'll test your limits always. And you push those limits because you're traveling. And if you just stay in your comfort zone, for example, if I stayed in London, yeah, you stay with your people. Well, I'm not English, but born in France, but I grew up in London. But it's kind of staying with your people, and even if it's very cosmopolitan, which I'm very grateful for, to have grown up in a city where you have Africans, you have Asians, you have all sorts. It opens your mind, but only to a certain degree, because they're
Mm,
still conditioned by the English culture.
yeah.
Because they grew up in England or in London. So not knowing another way of doing things and opening your mind is something you can't really explain, and it's something that people have to live. And for that, yeah, I'm very grateful to have left. If that was on a psychological, emotional level, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the opportunities, like you say, to travel, to experience new cultures, that's life-changing.
In London, life is very expensive, like all Londoners would know, and in many countries, many Western countries, you work to pay your bills, basically. And there's a concept where if you can work remotely, you can work less, earn good money because you're fortunate to be living in cities where they pay good wages compared to, wage that you would have earned in South America or Africa, and you can live well using your circumstances, which, let's be honest, people who are born in Europe or in America, they have way more opportunities than the ones who, were born in South America, Africa, or certain countries in Asia. It's as simple as that. So how do I use my opportunities to the fullest, for either for God, either for helping people, or for different things?
Mm.
So for me, that was also my mindset. How do I use my circumstances, which I'm very fortunate to have, to help others, to help, in different things, and to be able to get out there. Yeah.
So many positive aspects.
Yeah, yeah,
It's difficult to
yeah,
number them, isn't it?
it's true.
And
It's
it's all
true.
linked. It's all linked essentially to a
Absolutely.
lifestyle and
Mhm,
a perspective and a way of seeing the world. So yeah, no, I
mhm,
completely agree.
mhm.
Okay, so maybe this is going to be difficult, this next bit, because the next question is, what do you think are some of the negative sides of working remotely? And if you've experienced some negative aspects, how have you overcome these issues?
What I could only imagine for certain companies, for certain people, is trusting the ones that do the work for you. And that can be very complicated when you have someone new. For example, a year ago, I had to change one of my workers. So my previous worker was a friend of mine who worked for several years, and he wanted to go back to France. So, great for him, happy for him, but also we have to replace him, someone we can trust. And that's not always easy. That can be a downside. Once again, when you have a team in place, which I had Erin in London to test him out, the new guy, how do you feel about him, and this and that. So that can be a downside where you don't control exactly everything. Also, there is the money aspect, where some things are paid cash, some things are paid by bank transfer, in my line of work anyway. And it's about a 50-50. So there's a
Oh,
lot of money,
that's
but
quite a lot.
yes, absolutely. So there is the trust where with the employees, and also with Erin about how much cash did they get, and how much is the total. So I did put in place, I think what's important for any remote workers to have an app which can control these things to the fullest. So at the beginning, when we first started, we had an Excel spreadsheet. An Excel spreadsheet, okay, it's free. You have all your clients, this and that, but anyone can edit it and change it, and and you don't see anything. I think it's about paying something monthly. Yes, it is quite pricey, but paying an app to be able to control as much as you can whilst you're working remotely. For example, they don't see what comes into the accounts. Even Erin doesn't see what comes into the accounts every single month. It's only me that sees it. I think also it's important not to show, and that's the only thing I don't show, because I think sometimes it can get to people's heads, even the most loyal of people, and that, oh wait, that's how much goes into the account, and I only get this. They see it. They can roughly calculate, because if the employees were to talk together and see how much goes in, they can, but they don't see it.
Yeah.
And when you don't see something exactly, there is always a little bit of doubt. So I think it's about controlling that aspect of financially, and also having an app where you can control as many things as possible. For example, my customer services, it's someone else that handles it. It's not the
Mm.
actual workers. The advantage with that is that when she handles the emails, that I know who's complaining, I know who's saying good things, and I get back to the worker, and then we carry on. We have a conversation. What's going on? You see. So
Yeah.
did that answer your question? What was the original?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really interesting to get that kind of managerial perspective,
Yeah,
and it links into the trust that we talked about
yeah,
earlier,
yeah.
the mutual trust.
You can't control everything. That's the negative side. You can't.
Yeah,
And I think if your way of being is always to try and control things and to micromanage, maybe remote work isn't for you. Maybe you need to do personal development or personal work on yourself before doing that, because it will require you at some point to take the leap of faith.
right.
Always. There's always going to be a risk when you leave other people to do it. Even when you do it your own self, you need to tell yourself that you're going to make mistakes. It's about putting in place an app which can contribute to you feeling more secure, peace of mind, that I know exactly all the clients that's been done, all the ones pay bank transfer, all the ones that pay cash, and then you have an idea of what's going on. It could always be a little bit of theft, of course, but you're minimizing what could actually happen. And that, when you're in another country, 5,000 miles away from the clients, then that is a great tool to actually have and to put in place.
Yeah, that's invaluable
Yeah,
to have that information. And it links in again as well to what we were saying earlier about not being greedy and stingy. Pay
yeah,
the money to segregate the duties,
mm,
because it's true, not every employee needs to have access to every bit of information. And like you
absolutely.
say, it could develop a temptation that doesn't need to be there, or even a feeling of resentment that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of a managerial responsibility to segregate those duties and be
mm,
wise as well in terms of how much information is shared. So, yeah,
absolutely.
really
And
good
also,
advice.
I put in place also now contracts. I don't do it with Erin because it's been work. If there's one thing, if something works well, don't change it. Why would you change a deal you've had with someone so many years because you want a bit more money? Don't change it. If it works well and you have this lifestyle, and just leave him be, leave her be to have what they want. If they're happy with it, don't change it. But for the others, when they were new, when they came into the company, I made contract because a contract when you're abroad, I think gives you peace of mind because you don't know exactly who the person is, and you write everything down. You give them time to read it. Sometimes they get back to you, oh yeah, I didn't really fully understand. Could we kind of change that? And you negotiate, it's important not to be rigid, especially when you're abroad. If you're rigid, no, it has to be like this and it has to be like that, and you're kind of patronizing. No, no, you go treat them like you want to be treated. It's as simple as that. And you think, okay, well, okay, let's find a middle ground here. So contracts are very useful when you're abroad, if you don't
Yeah,
trust or if you don't know the person fully.
yeah. Okay. And are you able to share the name of that app that you use? It sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, this app is made for mostly my line of work.
Ah,
It's
okay.
called Squeegee, but it can be used. I think they're changing it for plumbers, for electricians, for even for accountants. So you can put all your clients and yeah, no, it's called Squeegee app.
Squeegee. All
So,
right, worth a look.
for with the name, we can imagine it was made for window cleaners, but they've customized it over time for it to be for others. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I guess anybody in the
other
kind of
traders.
service industry. Okay,
Yeah,
thanks for that.
yeah.
Squeegee. I'll be
Squeegee, yeah.
Googling that later. Okay. So you've touched on this already about the way that you collaborate with your employees. When you're interacting with somebody on a remote basis, what is it about the kind of style of communication and personality traits that make that an easier process so that you want to continue working remotely with somebody?
The first one that comes up to mind is loyalty. Of course, it's difficult to know at the beginning, but I felt that very quickly with, for example, my first one, Erin, the one I worked with. I felt with him like he was solid and, we were friends. He's like a brother, like a brother to me. So there'll be one thing. And it's also humility. If I feel that the person has a certain level of pride or arrogance, it's going to be difficult because at the end of the day, even if I don't act like it, I am the boss. And I think there's going to be some times where I'm going to ask questions. And that's what's great about the training I got also as a therapist is that I had to communicate without attacking the person. And I think it's important to be open and to have someone in front of you who's willing to listen and to question themselves. Are they actually doing the work well and this and that? And I think questioning the person is actually the best way forward. Instead of attacking them, you asking them, what's going on here or there, and you're giving them the responsibility to explain themselves. But yeah, humility, I would say, because then
Right.
you can get in so many arguments. And when you get into arguments regularly with that person, it's not even the work that tires you out, the actual work, the physical work. It's actually the emotional impact it has on you and him. And you're actually more tired of arguing from the actual work. So it's important that both sides, myself and the other person, shows humility and we can work something out. I'm always open to finding a solution and what's good for both sides, for both parties.
So if I've understood correctly, then it's that humility that will help both sides communicate directly, respectfully, and also
Yeah.
it's
Mm.
important that the employee, as you said, recognizes that they are an employee,
Mm.
that their input is valuable, but nonetheless, it's you that has to shoulder the responsibility of making final decisions.
Yeah, I do believe, at some point someone can be humble at the beginning, and when they see the money going in or they see the money in the hands, the cash, it can get to their mind and it can get a bit more bit prideful, thinking that, why, I can be earning this money without, going through them. And that's also the problem with them handling money, first of all. And second, the fact of sometimes including them so much in the company, treating them like family, and I think sometimes, they just want more of it. Why am I only getting this when you get this? So it's humility goes up and down for everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I think it's when you have someone reasonable, when it's and they have a good heart. I think what we all have in common is that all the guys, all the peeps have good hearts. And I think they would never be able, and they have principles and values that they wouldn't be able to actually hurt the business or hurt someone. And that's great to have. And I think it's that this is all unconscious things that, when you're on the same wavelength and you feel that someone, when you're like that, you feel that in the other person, and and you collaborate well.
Mm.
So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that's useful advice for anybody who's looking to become an employee or indeed to be a freelancer and find clients, is to
Mm,
have, as you say, values in place
yeah,
that are going to be attractive to a prospective employer or client. And then you will be able to build, that professional, respectful, yeah, mutually respectful and humble connection. So no, I think that's really good advice for anybody who's looking to develop their career. And then also likewise, anybody who's managing a team as well.
yeah.
If those values are important in your employees, then surely you need to be showing them yourselves as well.
Mm. I think once again, it's all about communication skills. I mean, just the fact if there is an issue, to say it straight away, uh, either for me or for him, just to say it so that tension doesn't get any bigger than it actually should be. And I think and I say that to them quite regularly. So some of them struggle with communication. And I tell them, how comes you didn't tell me this? If you had told me earlier, I would have, tried my best to make things simpler for you, and see all this tension came up like this over a few days, few weeks, and it's created a problem which is not really a problem because it hasn't been communicated. So really get those communication skills with your employees, with everyone you work with in your company when you do remote work, to really make things as simple as possible for them and for yourself. Yeah.
Really good advice. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Jean-Baptiste. So, as you know, this is the Remotely Interested podcast about remote working, work life in general, and top tips to successfully work from anywhere. We've already had loads of information that comes under these categories, so amazing. Thank you. We're now going to turn to the Mosaic Gold plate of random questions. Don't be afraid. Here we go. I'm running out of questions actually. So if anybody's listening and has got ideas for questions, please send them through because I'm getting through these quite quickly. But we'll have a new one here for Jean-Baptiste. Okay, what's this one going to say? Mhm. Oh, I like this one. Okay, Jean-Baptiste, where is the most unconventional place that you've worked from?
Um, unconventional place. I don't think there has been.
Ah, no, not under a waterfall or down in the bottom of a valley somewhere in Colombia. No?
Trying to think, but it's a good question. Maybe there has been once, but it hasn't really maybe traumatized me, or hasn't done deep for me to to sink in to remember. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to. Maybe it was when I was in Colombia, but well, like I said, I only work like an hour a month on so that can be done anytime in the month just to coordinate things with my cleaning company. But when it comes to having my patients on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, the days I have them, I need a place where it's completely isolated
Yeah.
and confidential. Nobody can hear. So it has to be a place where I feel comfortable to work in and the person feels insecurity. So I can't do it next to a waterfall or anything, or any place weird. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that line of work, obviously, yeah, confidentiality and a calm and respectful environment is important.
so about that, I think it's a good question because when it comes to my other business, or I don't really consider it business, but as a therapist, I think it's important to have always another plan, a plan B. So, for example, when it comes to that, what's the most important is actually internet and a computer. So I always, had really good Wi-Fi, the best I could have. And in case, because in places like South America, Colombia, you have power cuts regularly, it's
Right.
having a plan B always. So it's either you have loads of data on your phone, so you can do a shared Wi-Fi, whatever you call it, and then you always make sure that you'll be there at the rendezvous. You're always going to be there, and it's going to happen. So, always finding solutions and plan, and always a plan B is important. Yeah.
And probably, I mean, the way that you manage your business seamlessly, you were heavily involved in your voluntary work when you were in Colombia and also visiting the country. So I wouldn't be surprised if you've sent the odd text message or taken a call in the most random places across the
Mm,
country or
mm,
across the continent, thanks to having a good connection, thanks to technology enabling you to be available from thousands of miles away.
yeah. So I think it's a good question. And it's good what you just mentioned. It's about because this can provoke pressure. I think when you work remotely, knowing how to handle pressure, and I think it's important to be very honest with ourselves. Am I able to handle pressure when there's a lot of problems? And to keep calm and knowing that you have that deep belief that you will overcome these pressures over time. It will just pass by, and there's always a solution. So
Mm.
I think that as a remote worker, it's important to nourish that belief that there's always a solution. What is it? You just got to sit down and figure it out. Sometimes it's not convenient, yes, but it's still a solution. And it's only temporary. It's not permanent. It's all about just communicating. For example, my patient, I can't work today. Well, push them back to the next day, or maybe you have to work on weekends, but it's temporary. It's only going to last for so long.
Yeah, no, I like that flexibility because
Yeah.
remote working gives you that freedom and we want to
Mm,
maintain that freedom. But yeah, sometimes you just have to put the hours in, put the time in to
yeah.
resolve an issue, and then the stress will decrease and you can go on with your life. Yeah. But
Mm,
being flexible, I think it ties into what you said about humility as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Knowing things are going to go wrong and sometimes graft is required to
Mm,
get things straight. And also what you said earlier, I think it's about being an effective leader, for anybody that wants to lead a team, that the plan B, C, maybe even D
mm,
is going to reassure everybody concerned,
mm.
the top
Absolutely. Yeah.
boss and all the employees. And it's a way to maintain the well-being of
Mm.
everybody and keep the stress levels at a minimum.
I think it's an interesting point you just mentioned about being a leader. I think everybody has a different idea of what a leader is and how they should conduct themselves. I think there is, before going to remote work, I think it's important to work on ourselves and to gain these skills. What does it truly mean? Sometimes we think it means this, this, and that because we've got this belief from where my father was. He was a leader, but did the employees truly like him or the way he was? But we have this belief because we feel our parents are like gods, and they're obviously right. But truly studying the subject on each skill, am I aligned with what I'm learning and what other people have shared? And so I think there's a bit of a preparation before going to remote work or having your own company, having your business, is really trying to better yourself. Because once you know how things were, because you study it so much, you feel that confidence. And the reason why I'm saying that is because your employees will naturally feel that. They will know if you're a natural leader or not, or if you have those skills. And
Right.
if you are, then they will feel secure and they know, well, I have a good leader. He's a nice leader and he knows what he's doing, and I feel comfortable to work with him. And otherwise, you will struggle to find good employees because they'll be like, this business, I'm not too sure. I'm not. So there is some kind of skills you do need to get her to work on. If you don't have, it's okay. Take your time. And
Yeah.
before you actually go into any kind of business or remote work, prepare yourself. Give yourself a year or 2 years and do it gradually.
Yeah. All comes back to those micro objectives that you talked about earlier, which is
Absolutely, yeah.
really,
And it comes bit by bit whilst I'm talking, but there's so many little
yeah.
things. And maybe when people are listening to this podcast, there's so many things to maybe to put in place. But really and truly, it's just doing it gradually, micro objectives, and to feel aligned with who I am and what I can actually give and to improve myself.
All right. Well, thanks, Jean-Baptiste. That has
Mm.
been truly an incredible conversation. We've really gone in some directions that I didn't expect, but really some very rich points for our listeners. So, do you have any closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
I would say thank you so much for inviting me. I was actually quite excited to be able to share some of my knowledge, some of my experience in the field. What I would say also from the last point, or one of the points I've mentioned, is that it's important to always better yourself, but also accepting your limits. It's important to answer honestly, what are my weaknesses and what are my strengths? Once we know that, we can answer that question honestly. And if we have a difficulty doing it, we are someone else, a close person, not any kind of person, someone who's close, who knows our circumstances, who knows us very well, to tell us, what do you think are my weaknesses? What do you think are my strengths? And I would like to be a remote worker, or I would like to create a company. What do you think I need to work on? And once you know these things, then you can find balance. You can, first of all, work on yourself, but it's all about being balanced, balanced materially, emotionally, on so many levels. So if you keep that balance, then your business or your remote work will last for a very long time.
Thank you. So, that remote objective, but having those conversations early on to remove any obstacles that perhaps you haven't seen yourself, so that you can, as you say, be balanced from
Yeah,
the word go.
seeing obstacles as temporary, not as permanent, and always being ready that there's going to be an obstacle next month for sure. Well, this year there will be some. Just being ready, just knowing. It's usually expectations that really expecting that everything will flow well in the next year. No, no, don't even think that. Just to have some expectations that there will be some obstacles and they're only temporary. And you can keep your emotional balance. You'll keep, that pressure down, pressure low, and you'll be able to overcome these things very quickly and very easily.
Yeah, excellent. Well, that's a nice point to end on. So thanks so much, Jean-Baptiste.
Thank you, Mary.
And see you soon. Take care.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. So we saw the importance of setting realistic micro objectives early in our career and learning financial contentment and gratitude to make sure that we don't put undue pressure on ourselves. We saw that even if your profession has to be performed in person, there is an option to develop this profession, build a team from a distance, and foster an atmosphere of loyalty, humility, and respect in the team so that you have the confidence to manage the team remotely. And we saw how managing a team remotely can open the door to explore other projects, including volunteering and personal development. So, if you're even remotely interested in remote working, I'll see you next time.